In 1968, Leonard and Ruby Evans were the first black family to buy a house on Pine Hollow Lane. It was a quiet street. Tree-lined. Fresh asphalt. American flags on porches. The kind of neighborhood where kids rode bikes until the streetlights blinked on. The day they moved in, someone burned a cross on their lawn. Leonard didn't flinch. He simply walked outside, poured gasoline over the base, and set it ablaze himself. Let it burn, he thought. Let them watch. Then he built a garden over the scorched patch. Raised 3 children in that house. Died in that house. Ruby passed 3 years later. Now, in 2025, their only surviving child, Angela Evans, 67, retired librarian, was trying to claim what was rightfully hers. But the city said the deed was missing. Angela stood at the county clerk's office, holding a yellowed mortgage folder in one hand and her father's death certificate in the other. "I've brought every document you asked for," she said. "We've paid property taxes for 56 years. The clerk, a woman in her 30s with corporate nails and a nameplate that read T. Forrester, barely looked up. "There's no deed on file. No grantor history for 117 Pine Hollow." Angela frowned. "That's impossible. My parents bought it with a GI loan. I've lived there my entire life." Forrester shrugged. "If there's no record, it's not city property." Angela leaned in. "Then whose is it?" Forrester stared at the screen, then muttered. "It was repossessed. 6 months ago. In a quiet seizure." Angela's stomach dropped. "Seized from who?" "Unknown party. The owner listed as Pine Hollow Trust Holdings LLC." Angela blinked. "I am the owner." The clerk gave a tight-lipped smile. "Not according to our system." Angela left the office in silence. By the time she got home, there was a letter waiting in her mailbox. Final notice, unauthorized occupancy. Per Municipal Code 24B, the property located at 117 Pine Hollow Lane has been deemed subject to immediate evacuation. Failure to vacate within 10 days will result in civil action. No court hearing. No signature. Just a stamp. That night, Angela dug through her father's old army footlocker in the attic. Inside, a bronze star. A faded photograph of Leonard in uniform. A copy of a 1968 deed of sale signed by a Mr. Harold J. Fenwick, the original seller of the home. She flipped it over. In her father's handwriting. "Paid in full. No man gave me this house. I earned it." Angela sat on the dusty floor and cried. Not because she was afraid to leave, but because someone had decided she never belonged there at all. The next day, she went to her pastor. Reverend Amos Clay, 74, silver-bearded, with a thunderous voice and courtroom instincts. He read the letter, then glanced at the deed. "They're trying to erase your paper trail," he said. "This ain't foreclosure. This is something else." Angela asked, "Why now?" Reverend Clay looked her square in the eyes. "Because you live on land they thought you'd give up years ago." He called an old friend, a city archivist named Thomas Benitez. Nerdy. Brilliant. Wore suspenders like armor. Thomas invited them to the records basement that night. After hours. With a flashlight, they searched the 1960s property logs. Row after row. Ledger after ledger. And there it was. Deed hashtag 247 PHL, original owner, Leonard Evans. Date, June 12, 1968. Angela smiled. "Found it." Thomas flipped the page. Then frowned. There was a second entry. January 7, 2024, record closed. Document nullified. Repossessed for legal reassessment under Municipal Order 10.73b. Reverend Clay leaned in. "Wait a minute." He scanned the red ink stamped across the page. "Property designated for historical redevelopment zone, restricted." Angela stared. They're turning it into a monument? Thomas shook his head. No. They're selling it to developers. Under a program for underutilized legacy properties. Angela whispered, legacy. It wasn't just about money. It was about who got to write history. The next day, a black SUV pulled up across the street from Angela's house. Two men in suits got out. No badges. No names. Just a clipboard. They didn't knock. They just took pictures. Of her door. Her mailbox. Her. Angela stood behind the curtain, fists clenched. Her father's voice rang in her memory. They'll try to erase your roots, baby. So make them grow deeper. Angela Evans filed the lawsuit the next morning. Evans versus City of Lanier County and Pine Hollow Trust Holdings, LLC. Claim, wrongful seizure of property. Deed tampering. Discriminatory displacement. She wasn't naive. She didn't expect swift justice. But filing made it real. It was a line in the sand. A line they responded to in less than 72 hours. A code enforcement officer showed up unannounced. Travis Grissom. Tall. Sunglasses. Beard too neat. Held a clipboard like it was a weapon. Ms. Evans, he said. We've received complaints. From who? She asked. He didn't answer. Overgrown hedge. Cracked step. Gutters not up to code. And, he pointed toward the garden, unauthorized landscaping within historical preservation perimeter. Angela laughed. That garden's been there since 1969. My daddy planted it over the ashes of a burning cross. Grissom didn't blink. You'll need to clear it. Or face municipal citation. She called Reverend Clay. They're circling, he said. Like wolves with permits. He put her in touch with an activist lawyer named Mira Chan, 43, fiery and fast-talking. She had sued the city once for overzoning a black cemetery into a parking lot. Mira read the case, fast. Angela, she said, this isn't just about your house. It's part of a pattern. She pulled up a map. Dots appeared across the screen, each one a seized or redesignated property since 2020. A majority of them? Located in historically black neighborhoods. Mira called in a favor from a paralegal at City Hall. They met in the back of a church thrift store. No names. No phones. The paralegal slid a flash drive across the table. On it, a memo from Lanier County Redevelopment Task Force, dated last October. Begin transfer of Tier C assets to private trust entities. Focus Phase 1 on legacy-occupied properties with low litigation risk. If challenged, cite zoning adjustments or compliance failure. Angela leaned forward. Legacy-occupied? It means homes where the original black owners are either deceased or aging, Mira explained. Low litigation risk means people they think are too old to fight back. Angela's voice turned to gravel. Then we'll teach them about miscalculations. Word spread. Within a week, Angela's front lawn was no longer just a garden. It was a battlefield. Hand-painted signs appeared. This land is testimony. You can't rezone history. 117 Pine Hollow stands. Neighbors started showing up. People brought food. Lawyers dropped off affidavits. A group of kids helped fix the cracked step. Someone printed t-shirts. We are her deed. Then came the rally. Reverend Clay brought the megaphone. Mira Chan brought the lawsuit documents. Angela stood in the middle, not speaking at first. Just standing. Strong. Visible. Alive. Then she raised her voice. My father earned this home in a world that didn't want him to. He raised 3 kids on this street. We watered a garden that grew from hate. And now you want to bulldoze the proof? She held up the original 1968 deed. Well, I'm here to say, you don't get to rewrite this story. And right then, a police cruiser pulled up. An officer stepped out. He carried a printed citation and said, "You're in violation of Municipal Assembly Code. No permit for large gathering." Mira stepped in. "We're not gathering. We're praying," Angela added. "We're grieving." The officer paused. Then said, flatly, "You'll need to disperse." And someone yelled, "Film this." A dozen phones went up. Angela turned to the crowd. "I won't move." Someone behind her repeated, "We won't move." And the chant began. "We won't move." That night, the footage aired nationwide. 67-year-old librarian faces eviction over technicality. City calls it policy, neighbors call it theft. Angela sat on her porch as strangers brought candles. Someone knelt and whispered, "My mama marched in Selma." "You're the same cloth." Angela touched their hand. "No. I'm the thread she gave me." The next morning, the SUV returned. Same two men. This time, they approached the porch. One held an envelope. "We're offering a settlement." Angela didn't open it. "Does it come with an apology?" He smiled like a man used to silence. "No. But it comes with money." And silence. Angela stared at him. "You ever rip up roots with your bare hands?" she asked. "It takes years. Sweat. Blisters. Blood. That's what this place cost." She pushed the envelope back into his chest. "You think you're offering me peace. But all you're offering is proof." The envelope hadn't even cooled in the trash before Angela got the knock at her door. Uniformed deputy. Neutral face. Typed paper in hand. "You are hereby notified, the city has filed for emergency possession of 117 Pine Hollow Lane. Effective in 5 business days." Angela stared at him. "Possession? This isn't an apartment. This is my life." He didn't respond. Just handed her the paper and walked off like it was a parking ticket. Mira Chan reviewed the motion that night. "They're using a public interest clause," she said. "Claiming your home is necessary for historical redevelopment to serve broader community equity." Angela blinked. "They're evicting me for equity?" Mira nodded grimly. "They invented a loophole. And now they're marching through it." She tossed the file on the table. "Unless we find something bigger, a clause, a document, or ruling, they'll win." Angela's voice was low. "Then let's dig deeper." That weekend, they visited the Lanier County Historical Society archives, a place with more dust than visitors. There they met Dr. Frances Boyd, 81, white-haired, half-blind, and sharp as a tack. She used to teach civil rights law. Now she cataloged local land transfers for fun. Angela explained everything. Frances listened in silence, then muttered. "There was something. A clause. I remember a fight in '68 when the GI Bill got challenged. Land set aside for black veterans was almost lost. There was a writer added." She disappeared into the back room, muttering about microfiche and bound ordinances. 30 minutes later, she returned holding a yellowed book labeled Lanier County Charter Revisions, 1967 to 1971. Page 243, paragraph 9. Properties purchased under federally backed veterans funding programs between 1966 to 1970 shall be protected under legacy occupancy and may not be seized or reassigned without living descendant consent. Angela stared. "That's my house." Frances tapped the page. "And this is your sword." They filed an injunction. Media picked it up instantly. Hidden clause could protect black homeowners in eviction fight. Legacy occupancy rule resurfaces after 50 years. The house that wouldn't be moved. That's when the letters started. Threats. Not from the city, from concerned citizens. Typed. "No return addresses. You're making trouble where there wasn't any. History is complicated. You don't speak for all of us. Your father's dead. Let the house go." Angela pinned the worst one to her fridge. Just above it, a photo of Leonard Evans standing in front of the house in his uniform. "I'm not letting go," she whispered. Then came the visitor. A woman in her 70s. Cane. Brown trench coat. She waited on Angela's porch until sunset. "I'm sorry to come unannounced," she said. "But I think I have something that belongs to your family." Angela eyed her cautiously. "Who are you?" "My name's Martha Fenwick. My grandfather sold your father this home in 1968. Angela straightened. "Harold Fenwick?" Martha nodded. "He was ashamed of the neighborhood after what happened. He left letters. Records. I didn't know what they meant until I saw your face on TV." She opened her satchel. Inside, a small leather notebook. "June 13, 1968, met Sergeant Evans today. Proud man. Said he'd been turned away 5 times by other lenders. I sold him the house at $3 below market just to be the one who said yes. His signature made it whole. I stamped it myself." Angela flipped the page. "If they ever come to take it, tell them I gave it freely." And with pride. Tears welled in her eyes. "Why bring this now?" she asked. Martha's answer was simple. "Because some houses aren't homes. They're witnesses." That night, Mira added the Fenwick notebook to the legal filing. 3 declarations now. The original deed. The legacy clause from the charter. And the handwritten testimony of the seller. Angela looked out the window at her front lawn, now blooming again with spring. "I'm not just fighting for bricks," she said. "I'm fighting for what they thought they could quietly bury." The court date was set. 3 weeks. Angela would get her day. But the city wasn't done. They filed a counter motion that night, requesting temporary restraining order due to community disturbance and non-permitted protest activity. And then, the power went out. Street by street. Block by block. Angela sat on her porch with a candle. No AC. No lights. But across the street, she saw them. 3 homes. All empty. All recently sold. All once owned by black families. And hers? The only one left with its porch light fighting back. Angela Evans didn't sleep that night. The lights stayed out. But something else kept her awake, a strange calm. The kind her father used to speak of from his war years. When they turn off the lights, he'd say, "It's not always to hide what they're doing. Sometimes, it's so you stop seeing what's already begun." At sunrise, the lights came back on. So did the calls. City Council's redevelopment subcommittee scheduled a closed-door executive session that afternoon. No press. No community reps, no Angela. But Mira-chan knew someone who'd been in those rooms before. Devontae D. Martin, 38, worked in the city's planning department. Young, brilliant, and slowly disgusted by the bureaucracy he served. He met Angela and Mira in the parking lot behind an old warehouse, paranoia in every step. "I'm not supposed to be here," he said. Mira leaned in. "We know." He handed her a USB drive. "What's on it?" Angela asked. "Email logs. Memos. Internal strategy docs. They've known about the legacy clause for 2 years. Their legal counsel flagged it as an obstacle in early drafts of the redevelopment plan." He hesitated, then added, "They've been hoping people like you wouldn't find it. Or wouldn't have the means to fight if you did." Angela's voice was quiet. They were wrong. The next day, Angela received a visitor. A representative from Pine Hollow Trust Holdings LLC, the shell company trying to buy the land. Polished suit. Leather briefcase. Smile that didn't reach his eyes. He handed her a crisp offer letter. Settlement amount, $2.1 million. In exchange, the homeowner agrees to vacate and sign a perpetual non-disclosure agreement regarding the property and its history. Angela raised an eyebrow. "I don't need money. The man's tone didn't change. It's not about need. It's about moving on. Angela's reply was immediate. Tell your people, some of us don't move on. We move through. And we take everything we remember with us. He left the offer on the porch. It sat there until the rain turned it into pulp. 3 days before the hearing, Angela received word. Her motion had been granted. The judge would allow the legacy clause, Fenwick's notebook, and the city's own memos to be entered into the public record. The city responded by filing a motion to suppress on grounds of irrelevance and age. Angela laughed aloud when she read it. Irrelevant and aged. That's what they think we are. Mira smiled. Let's prove them wrong. On the day of the hearing, people gathered outside the courthouse. Some had marched with King. Others were in strollers. Veterans. Historians. Students. Neighbors. All holding signs. Land is memory. 117 Pine Hollow is the archive. You can't evict legacy. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Angela sat in the front row. Mira at her side. The city's lawyer looked annoyed. But just as the judge entered the bench, something unexpected happened. Channel 7 News rolled in a camera crew. They had obtained a court order granting public access to the hearing, citing broad public interest. The judge allowed it. And the city's face turned gray. Testimony began. Angela read the clause from the county charter. Slowly. Clearly. She held up the original deed. Then the notebook. She quoted Harold Fenwick's words. If they ever come to take it, tell them I gave it freely. And with pride. Then she paused. Held up a photograph of her father watering the garden. My daddy didn't just build a house, she said. He built a proof. That a black soldier could come home from war and plant something that stayed. Silence. Then one person clapped. Then another. Then the room echoed with it. After recess, the city's lawyer motioned for a private sidebar. The judge allowed it. In the corner, the city whispered for 2 minutes. Then their counsel turned and said, We wish to withdraw our petition and dissolve the transfer claim. Ms. Evans' property rights are hereby acknowledged. Gavel drop. Gasps. Angela blinked. That's it? Mira nodded. You beat them. Outside, reporters swarmed. Microphones. Cameras. Lights. One voice asked, Ms. Evans, what do you plan to do now? Angela looked straight into the camera. I'm going home. And tomorrow, I'm planting tomatoes. That night, as dusk settled on 117 Pine Hollow Lane, the porch lights glowed warm. The power stayed on. Neighbors left flowers. A young boy from the block brought over a drawing, crayon on cardboard, of Angela's house in her garden. He handed it to her shyly. I drew it so they can't forget, he said. Angela knelt. They won't, she said. She pointed to the ground. Because this house doesn't just sit on land. It sits on story. 2 weeks after the courthouse victory, Angela Evans sat on her porch, watching a city shift around her. The news hadn't died. If anything, it had bloomed, like spring after a long drought. The Lanier County Commission voted 6-1 to establish legacy protection zones, legal shields for properties owned by black families from 1945 to 1975, purchased via veterans or civil rights housing programs. 117 Pine Hollow Lane became the first house formally designated under the policy. The plaque was small. Brushed brass. Simple engraving. Evans House, EST 1968. Legacy occupied. Protected. History resides here. Angela touched the edge of the plaque that morning, not with pride, but with quiet defiance. They tried to make it invisible. Now it was engraved in metal. With Myra's help and donations from around the country, Angela launched the Pine Hollow Foundation for Preservation and Equity. Its mission was simple. help black homeowners recover lost deeds, offer legal defense against predatory land acquisition, archive and digitize neighborhood histories before they vanished. By fall, 13 homes had been recovered. One of them had been abandoned for years. Inside, they found school photos, letters from the 1950s, and a small notebook, much like the one Martha Fenwick had delivered. Angela flipped through it. A line on the last page read, "They never gave us these homes. We made them into proof." One Saturday, as the leaves began to fall, Angela received a letter. Handwritten. Return address, Tuskegee, Alabama. From a woman named Eliza Dorsey. Inside. My mother was your father's sister. She left Georgia in 1947 and never came back. I watched your trial on TV. That garden looked just like the one my mama used to tend. And taped to the inside? A Polaroid from 1969. Angela. Age 10. Sitting in the dirt. Planting something. Leonard standing behind her. She had never seen the photo. I took this picture when we came for your birthday, Eliza had written. He told me, let them write me out of history, my girl will write me back in. Angela cried that night. Not from grief. From wholeness. 3 months later, Angela stood before a crowd at a university lecture hall. The event was titled, Not Just a House, Angela Evans and the Weaponization of Memory. She spoke without notes. My father used to say there were two kinds of history, the kind you read and the kind you stand on. This house, this fight, it was always about the second one. She held up the crayon drawing the neighbor boy had made. This, she said, is how we win. Back on Pine Hollow Lane, the porch light still glowed every night. The garden bloomed. And beneath the soil, between the roots and red Georgia clay, lay the truth. That land remembers who it was loved by. And if you listen close enough, you can hear it whisper back.